come on in. Let's do this. Let's get started. Hey, listen, while people are coming in, let me give you the plugs. I'm going to try and get better at doing the plugs. So, John Dennis Report on YouTube. That's the one I really want people to jump in on, is the John Dennis Report on YouTube. If you could do that, that would be great. Oh, hey, Mario, after the show, let's make sure that we talk about something else that I need to sort out in terms of Facebook and maybe even on YouTube we can do, all right?
Sure thing.
Okay, great. So John Dennis Report on YouTube, please subscribe. Really helps, and ultimately it'll help pay for Mario. So you have that. And of course, Real John Dennis on Twitter. I got back one of my Twitter accounts. Was it yesterday, the day before yesterday? No, yesterday I got it back. The John Dennis fan page. And of course, Twitter was kind enough to return it with about a third of the followers taken away. But okay, listen, we got it back and it's on live. It was down for about 7 weeks, 6.5, 7 weeks. It went down on December 1st, and we got it back yesterday. So whatever the math is on that. And but we decided, and actually, what I've decided to do with that account, I hadn't quite known didn't know what I was going to do there. Actually, Mario, maybe you can pull this up. John Dennis SF on Twitter. I wasn't sure what to do with it for a long time, and then while I didn't have it, it occurred to me it really needs to be like a parody account, like my evil twin. All the stuff that I really want to say, not really want to say, but also like imagine if I was like a dyed-in-the-wool, identity politics progressive. So I turned it into John Dennis's evil twin account, and my daughter gave me. I think we're going to fix this picture. Wait till you pull it up. So years ago, the Wall Street Journal did an article about me, and they gave me one of those head cuts. If you know what those are those little sketches that they do of you. It's so like in the Wall Street Journal, they don't put up pictures of a person. If they do a profile on them, they do these things called head cuts. And so I've been using my head cut as the fan page thing. And then so to make it evil, John Dennis, who put an evil mustache on. That was my daughter's quick run at a mustache. Can people see that, Mario?
Yes, they can.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. And so that's it. So we'll have John Dennis. I want to get a handlebar mustache. I think that's more devious, and make the face a little bit smaller so that we can squeeze it in and people can see. But that's actually going to be the evil John Dennis's evil twin account, parody account, and hopefully we can grow it and have a little fun. So anyway, follow us there too. But Real John Dennis on Twitter. What is it, John Dennis for Congress on Facebook? That's the big one?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, John Dennis for Congress on Facebook and John Dennis Report on YouTube. So please follow us across the board. And then now that people are filtering in, actually, I don't know how many people are filtering in, but let me take a quick look on Periscope. I've been watching this Expanse. I started last month before the holidays, and so, oh God, look at my hair today. Let me go ahead and shut this off. Just want to recommend it. Just watch The Expanse. Maybe we'll talk about that in detail at some other time. But some of the things I really like about it are the politics. I mean, the politics. It's just goes to show politics doesn't change. Human nature doesn't change. You can expand out to multiple galaxies and into this solar system, whatever, and you're still going to have politics, and human beings are going to be human beings, irrespective of the breadth of distance between us. So that's pretty interesting, and if you get a chance, please do. I'd recommend watching it. All right, so listen. So today is going to be about Trump. We put out a video yesterday, I think it was. We did the summary video yesterday. Is that right? And put it out and got some response to it. And I just was basically doing sort of a broad description of the Trump presidency, which I said was really amazing. I think Trump did some really great things, including sort of refocused what the government ought to be, and talked about how government, has become, particularly the federal government, has become. It's about them and us serving them, and Trump they changed the focus, refocused it on the government serving people. I think that's really the biggest accomplishment. But I wanted to give sort of this will probably change a little bit over time, and I'll do this again maybe 6 months from now, maybe a year from now. But I wanted to talk about the kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Trump presidency, just beyond the accomplishments of refocusing government energy, which can't be really understated. When I think of my lifetime, I can't think of a president who really got it that right in the way that Trump did. And as I look back in history before my time, John Kennedy changed it in a way, or at least he said it out in the open, that not ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Changed the word country to government. And that's really sort of where we started to lose our way. And Trump changed that. So let's break it down. So I'm going to give you a sort of a libertarian's point of view of what the good parts. This isn't sort of what the mainstream historians might say about Trump's presidency, because I think they have a different perspective. There's a book out there called Recarving Rushmore. I'm going to give you the author's name because it's really worth the read, and the guy's name should be known. Recarving Rushmore is really it's Ivan Elan. Yeah, I should remember that name. Wrote it for the Independent Institute. It's a great book, and it re-ranks the presidents. So, like, if you look at presidential rankings now, they always have Lincoln first, and guys like Warren Harding last, those kinds of guys. And that's from but they have a perspective, and the perspective is really a pro-state point of view. Lincoln, for all of the noble things that we say about him, many of them are true, was also kind of a disaster. I mean, what if he managed to figure a non-violent war way of getting us out of slavery? I mean, that's a question that's been posed because we're like the only Western country that couldn't do that. So Lincoln actually, in Elan's book, Recarving Rushmore, gets a different perspective and different treatment. But I'm sort of taking his approach when I think in terms of Trump. So what did Trump accomplish? Well, the first thing he did was he reduced regulations, and I'm almost uncomfortable talking about that because people said, he reduced regulations. He says he reduced regulations, and that led to a booming economy. And it's probably true. The only reason why I don't feel comfortable getting into that, I'm just going to take that on faith, is because frankly, I don't know which regulations he reduced and which ones actually led to a booming economy. I mean, I know he did some changes to taxes. I'm not going to call the tax bill a huge win, because while it reduced revenues, it had some other consequences, and it also didn't reduce revenues for a lot of people in other states. In fact, my taxes actually went up because of Trump's tax bill, because the SALT taxes, which state and local taxes, which used to be deductible, the Trump tax bill got rid of those. So in high tax states like California, Californians started paying far more in federal government tax, even though the bill was supposed to be a tax cut. So I'm going to set aside the tax bill, but I will say, and I'm taking on faith, because I've looked to see which regulations he reduced, and I know he has, but I just really can't find a list of them anywhere and an explanation, really good article about it. But in any event, so I'm going to take that. So that was a big accomplishment, and it led to a robust economy. It was really easy pickings. It's sort of just money sitting on the floor. Obama could have done that, but because of his ideological bent and his base, he couldn't. But Trump did. Here's a big thing for me. No new wars. And there was a graphic that got put out going back to think it was Kennedy and all the new wars that each president started, Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon, Ford, Carter. I think it was kind of going back that far, and then Trump, and Trump had no new wars. Folks, that is a huge accomplishment, a humongous accomplishment. Government thrives, federal government thrives and feeds on new wars. And the fact that Trump deprived them of a new war is a massive accomplishment. I'm so grateful. And in fact, it's one of the reasons why when I had that conversation with people who were skeptical, including Rand Paul, about supporting Trump, that was the thing that I had in mind. Trump's instinct was not to go to war. Good business people have that instinct. Bad business people want to go to war because they find ways of actually profiting off it, profiteering. But Trump and guys in real estate, they don't want war. What good does that do for them? It does, helps certain people at the expense of others, but it hurts all of us overall. So I cannot understate the magnitude of that accomplishment. He should feel so unbelievably proud of that, and we should feel good about that. And it's going to make it a little more difficult for Biden, by the way, who was supportive of a number of wars, voted for Iraq, but also the really bad stuff like mucking about Syria, deposing Gaddafi in Libya. It's going to make it more difficult for him to get away with that sort of stuff because now the Republican Party has become the anti-war party. It's certainly not on the left. There are elements of the left that don't want to go to war, but some of them have been driven out of town, like Tulsi Gabbard, for example. But really, if you think about all the strong anti-war voices that are in the Republican Party, from Rand Paul to Thomas Massie to Matt Gaetz, I mean, there's a number of us now, and I think Trump deserves an enormous amount of credit for that. He held back to some extent the spy states, sort of exposed the intelligence operations of the U.S. Not that he exposed their means or methods or that sort of thing, but pointed out that these guys have their own agenda and they want to run the show. They think of themselves as running Washington D.C., not the president. The president is kind of an incidental person, and so Trump, because they were constantly fighting him. I mean, think about this. You had the former head of the FBI, the former head of the CIA, the former head of the NSA, the former DNI, on cable TV constantly attacking Donald Trump, the sitting president of the United States. Think about when that has never happened before. Never. We have that because of Donald Trump, because he posed a threat to them and pulled back the curtain. Donald Trump pulled back the curtain on a lot of things, and that was one of them. For all of the people for years who were saying that these guys have outsized influence and way too much power, Donald Trump proved us right. So, huge debt of gratitude we owe to Donald Trump from that. Donald Trump exposed the problem with China. Look, I want China to succeed. I think Chinese people are amazing, but they have a government that wants control in a really strong way. I think, incidentally, that if they would allow people to criticize them, I think they'd actually do better. I think that's true of any government, truth be told. But the Chinese government has, we've handed it to them because of our structure and our politics in the United States. We've handed an enormous amount of power over to them. They've infiltrated our country. Look at our universities. It's a program that they're cutting back on now. But I mean, this is what's going to happen by nature if you have enormous trade deficits with the country, where every year $400 billion, $500 billion, $600 billion ends up sitting over in their bank accounts. Well, listen, that money's got to get back home some way because they don't want it. What good is that money doing sitting over there for them? They want things in return for that. So they're going to buy assets. They're going to go around the world. They've been doing a lot of infrastructure work and investment in Africa. But ultimately, the real assets, the ones that they want, are here in the U.S. And so what are they going to do? They're going to come and spend that money here and enhance their power here. And here's the thing. I mean, no matter what we do at this stage and at this rate, China's economy is going to overtake ours. There's no two ways about it. It's going to happen. They're going to be the most powerful country in the world in 10, 15 years, 20 tops. Actually, the truth is probably in 20 years, certainly in 30 years, their economy is going to be at least double ours. They're going to be the most powerful country in the world. All of this current power grab is utterly and completely unnecessary because they're moving in that direction. But the fact that we have people willing to sell out to them to give them power early was really exposed by Donald Trump. This is a huge problem. And I think what Trump also exposed was the fact that the Democrats in particular are beholden to the Chinese. This is a big problem. The President of the United States' son has business dealings, very favorable business dealings to him. So that means that the President of the United States is effectively compromised by the Chinese government. Think about that. Would we have known that had Donald Trump not been on the scene? I don't think so. So another huge accomplishment by the former president. As I mentioned, made government the priority over the American people. Also, I know people focus on the pro-life element, but the judge appointments were enormous, mostly because they weren't just pro-life judges, but more importantly, they were liberty judges who understood. Listen, if you're a constitutionalist, you're pro-liberty. And that's really what makes America different. That's what makes us unique, and that's what makes us prosperous. And the fact that he got so many of those judges appointed were enormous accomplishments. Okay, let's move on. I'm kind of getting a little long here. So the next thing is, this is sort of the bad, or I'll call them the missed opportunities. I don't think, early on, Tucker Carlson, maybe about 9 months into Trump's presidency, Tucker Carlson did an interview, and I think most people on the left saw Tucker as just another apologist for Donald Trump. But he did an interview, a print interview, where Tucker criticized the president. He said he doesn't understand the legislative process. He doesn't take the time to understand it, and it's going to come back and haunt him. And he was really right. I don't think Trump understood that. I don't think Trump understood the depth of the problem with the intelligence agencies and the deep state and the bureaucratic state. And that's probably the most pleasant way to put it, maybe even the most accurate, is the bureaucratic state. I don't think he understood just how entrenched they are and just how much power they wield in Washington and how they leverage it to wield power over us. And he really missed the opportunity to go after them and to sort of equalize the playing field. And, for all of the self-congratulations, deserved self-congratulations on appointing so many judges, what he missed was an opportunity to weed out and to take power back away from the bureaucratic state. I got to say, give credit where it's due. Steve Bannon was one of the guys who was talking about that early on. We've got to take control back from those folks. And he really didn't. He really missed that opportunity to get done more. And by the way, had he set it up like a chess game, set it up so that Trump is sort of like a speed chess player. Had he played it more like a regular, like normal chess, the long game, he would have set up early on in his administration all of those pieces so that he could, move into the middle game and then the end game. And, after years 2 and 3, really nicked those people, moved them out so that he could make take control back from the government. So anyway, he could have done more to bring back manufacturing. I know he said that he did some, but the troubles in manufacturing are deep in this country. And it's not just that we're selling it out to China. There are other things that we can do in terms of, lots of other things in terms of regulations. I'll bring that up in another live stream. But he could have done more there, and he missed that opportunity. These low interest rates, I have to tell you, he wanted lower interest rates. Trump knows better, and he really. And there's a reason why I'm going to get to when we get to the ugly. But these low interest rates are a real problem. They sow seeds of businesses that could not exist, that wouldn't exist if we had what's called the natural interest rate. Right now we have a market interest rate, which is influenced by the government. If we had a natural interest rate, the interest rates wouldn't be this low, and we'd be in a much healthier position. But we can't, and I'll get to that in a minute. But that was a real missed opportunity. Missed opportunity to repeal Section 230. And he could have done that early on. And I got to put this on Paul Ryan. Well, listen, Trump, trusted Paul Ryan. That's his missed opportunity right there. That was a mistake. Paul Ryan is a bureaucratic state, person. And think about wherever Paul Ryan goes, things happen that aren't to the benefit of the Republicans. Paul Ryan's over at Fox News. I think most people know that now. He's on the board of Fox News. How's Fox News doing these days? They've changed their agenda, and they are now the number 3 cable network, where they were the dominant number 1 cable network for 2 decades. Paul Ryan's there, and coincidentally, it goes down. So he trusted Paul Ryan and didn't get Section 230 repealed. This is a huge problem. I mean, we're facing, a problem of Orwellian proportions here in the United States because of the power that the tech companies have, the social media companies have, and their unholy alliance with the Democrat Party. This is a bad thing. Trump missed that opportunity. In fact, that could actually be considered really the ugly, but let's just call it a missed opportunity for the moment. Could have gone after the teachers' unions. That's a really long-term move. But, our kids' minds are being poisoned by all this identity stuff, all supported by teachers' unions. And if you think it only happens, the teachers' unions even impact the public teachers' unions because they crowd out the market on the public side of education. They have an enormous impact on the private side of education too. So you think you're going to find refuge in a private school from the teachers' unions? Guess again. I got a 14-year-old, and I'm telling you, there's no refuge. Their minds get influenced. Trump could have taken that on, missed that opportunity, and he also really could have taken on. One other missed opportunity was he was constantly, Trump's thing is fight, push back, and he has principles, and give him credit, he goes with them, but he has to understand that principles sometimes have exceptions. And with Pelosi, he really missed an opportunity. Pelosi was attacking his weight and saying terrible things about him, and that's her nature. All he could have done was, instead of hitting back at her, he could have gone the soft route and said, well, I'm sorry, Ms. Pelosi would say something like that. I think that's it's a mistake. We're trying to do business together and make arrangements for the American people, and it generally doesn't help to insult your negotiating partners. But let's see if somehow she can step away from doing that sort of thing, and if we can move forward. Had he done that like once or twice, it would have really handcuffed her and really probably forced her hand. I mean, he just missed that opportunity. And then let's get to the ugly. And this is where I'm going to jump in. I'm going to try and wrap this up in just a second here. This, first of all, we'll start with the paternalistic view of government. Like, he was the big daddy and wanted to help people who were being hurt by COVID, for example. And I get that, but that's really not the way the government was set up. The government's there just to protect your rights. That's their goal. This is why Donald Trump is not a libertarian. He doesn't get that, and he tried to make it more than it was. And this is sort of also the downside of nationalism, is that this paternalistic view of government, and it doesn't work out because he was good daddy, but what happens when bad daddy gets in there? And that's a problem. He also had some like gun restriction talk at one point. I mean, he never did anything about it, but I just think it's not a good idea, particularly for a Republican president, to talk about restricting gun rights, gun ownership rights. Bad move, very bad. The big thing, I've got one more point to this, but here's the really big thing: is the spending leading to higher deficits and higher debt. We hit the COVID thing, and that was an excuse to go ahead and spend a lot of money. But prior to that, we really weren't making any gains on reducing the size of the debt. The deficits were huge every year, and I think the reason why politicians do that is because they want a second term. First term presidents, what do they want? A second term. And so what they do is they want the economy propped up by federal spending. And they don't want to be the guys who cut in the first term that leads to a recession, makes it more difficult for them to get reelected. But the truth is, had he gone in early and made those cuts, then the economy would have done fine anyway, and he would have been in a much better position. We would have been in a much better position. But now we have this Joe Biden going in, and I don't know, what are we at right now? What's the clock say? 27.8. We're going to be at $30 trillion on the back of a $20 trillion economy in the next few months. I mean, we're all pretending that somehow we're going to be able to repay this. This is a nightmare. It puts us in a weak position, and puts us in a particularly weak position against China. So that was a mistake, and a bad one, and also impacts interest rates. Because, let's say we're at $30 trillion in debt. If you go up, if you let interest rates go up 100 basis points, 1%, that's another $300 billion a year that you add into the federal budget just to pay the interest. That's just on 1 percentage point. And we could easily go up, I don't know, 5 percentage points to be a normal interest rate, right? Where interest rates ought to be from where we are now. That means we could have another $1.5 trillion added on just in interest payments on the back of the debt. We're in trouble. This is not a good situation. And you think Joe Biden gets this? No. So this was a big mistake by Trump, and I understand why he did it, but it was just, he was maybe thinking he was going to address this in his second term, but you just can't count on the second term. And then the last thing, and this is really critical, is that, listen, Trump is not responsible for what happened at the Capitol. Ultimately, I think it was those people who went into the building. But where he made a mistake was he really didn't cover himself. He should have made it explicitly clear that he wanted a peaceful protest. I understand that this had been coordinated, prior to the event. I understand that these people started, doing this stuff, going in and threatening the building 20 minutes before his speech ended. I get all that. But for the weeks leading up to it, he should have said, we are peaceful protesters, and that's what this is going to be. Just to cover himself, if for no other reason. This whole impeachment business that he is facing now is because he didn't do that. And he's too smart. He's too smart to have missed that point. It's really an unforgivable mistake. And some of the consequences could end up being that because he's facing this second impeachment, they say that one of the reasons why he didn't pardon Snowden and Assange and Ulbricht was because he wanted to trade that off, that if he had done those pardons, for sure he would have been convicted in the Senate. That would have precluded him from running for president again. I think that's true. And he would have lost the Secret Service protection for himself and his family. Well, listen, had he not put himself in that position for that impeachment, then he could, Snowden and Assange and Ulbricht could have been pardoned. So this was a real, and that would have sent a message loudly and clearly who the government works for. Again, a really big mistake. So listen, overall, again, I think Donald Trump had an amazing run, and if I were to do the same evaluation for Obama, for example, the accomplishments would have been far fewer, less significant. The bad and the ugly would have been far worse. Overall, Donald Trump was worth the investment as our president, and I think he did a great job and did amazing things. But missed opportunities and did some bad stuff that are going to have long-term consequences and impacts. So, in any event, I hope this was helpful to you, and I'm glad you stuck with me. And again, I just want to remind you to please. Let me just take a look at some of your comments. Troy Dennis, no, I don't think we're. Thanks so much. I appreciate the support. Too many old people in politics. We people, yeah, thanks. And I don't know what the other. This time. No, don't worry. Still be racist. Oh, thanks. It's very nice of you to say about the Senate race. Anyway, so listen again. Let me just say this for those of you who are left. Please follow us. They're really important. Please follow us on YouTube. That's the one I really want to focus on right now. John Dennis Report on YouTube. Help us build that market and that space. We have a number in mind we want to get to. We're a little bit away from that right now, but every new sign up helps. So please follow us on John Dennis Report on YouTube. Real John Dennis on Twitter. John Dennis for Congress on Facebook. Sorry we have so many different names. But please follow us, and thanks for being here, and we will see you again Monday. Have a great weekend.